All right, good afternoon, folks. We're here again today at Yankton, South Dakota. Today we're going to be doing some pattern work in my Cirrus SR20 that I have a custom livery on here that I wanted to take a moment to show you guys quickly. I did this up as a tribute to the Breaking Bad television series that was on for a number of years. They're currently doing a 10-year anniversary of that, so I figured I would do a quick paint scheme and paste some logos on there and whatnot. I've got the Breaking Bad 10-year logo here on the nose, and then I've got their standard stuff on either wing. I like the black and red. It's a sharp-looking color combination, although I'm not sure in a real airplane, a fiberglass airplane, that a black is probably a good color for that, but we are virtual, so we'll live with it. Got the logo back here. I need to flip it. Actually, it's reversed, but it's half Jesse and half Walt from the series. So, in any case, that's the kind of a cool thing you can do with X-Plane. You can make your own airplane liveries. This one, it happens to be the V-Flight Air Cirrus SR20. It comes with a paint kit, so it makes it pretty easy to modify your own designs. So, in any case, today I wanted to do some pattern work in the SR20. A couple days ago, I posted a video doing the same exact thing in a 172, but I thought it might be useful for some folks to kind of watch the pattern work in the Cirrus to see how it differs a bit from a 172. In real life, these things fly completely different. There are different airspeeds, different procedures, and there's a lot of benefits to and disadvantages to both aircraft. I fly them both in real life and fly them both in a virtual life as well. So, in any case, we'll go through it today. I'll try to point out some of the differences as we go along, and hope it's somewhat useful or enjoyable. So let's go ahead and we'll jump in the cockpit. We did our walk around here just a second ago, so everything looks good on the outside. We'll try to avoid that fuel truck that likes to cruise the tarmac indiscriminately as to airplanes taxiing, but that's kind of fun. Okay, so we've jumped in the cockpit now. We'll go ahead and get fired up here on the SR20. So first thing, battery 2. Get that on. That'll start up the PFD and give us some power to do things. It is a bit of a cold start this morning, so we'll go ahead and open the throttle in the mixture and prime it a little bit. Only a couple of seconds. Only need a couple of seconds of that. Might be too much, but we can bring the throttle back to idle, mixture full, and we'll go ahead and get it started. So. Whoa. So I didn't have the parking brake on. Should hold the brakes, I guess, when I do that. Okay, so we got it fired up here. I'm going to go ahead and just lean it back a little bit. Kind of help with spark plug fouling. Go ahead and get our battery 1 on, our alternator 1 and 2, our avionics on, strobe. That's probably all we'll need here today. So that comes up. We got our RPM 1,000 or so. That's good to kind of get things warmed up. The airport elevation is 1,300 or so, so we'll go ahead and get that dialed in here. That's probably good. Go ahead and get our backup somewhat close. Okay, so before we taxi, we make sure our fuel pump's off, mixture's set, fuel tank's on the fullest tank, flaps up, lights are on, avionics are on, radios are set, so we're ready to go. So, Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308, Bravo Bravo, taxiing from the ramp out to 31 in Yankton. The V-Flight Air Cirrus comes with a steerable nose wheel. That isn't particularly real because a real Cirrus is a free castering nose wheel, and you basically have to use differential braking until you have enough speed that the rudder will help you with that. So I actually went in to the Cirrus model and I made the nose wheel castering, but it is a real bear to try to navigate on the ground without that steerable nose wheel in this model. So I don't know if I'll keep it this way or not, but if I'm darting around the taxiway and the runway on takeoff, that's why. So, alright, so in any case here, we're at the hold short line, so it's time to do a run-up, so we can pull up the engine page here in the nice G1000 panel. Bring the RPMs up to 1700 in this airplane. That's this gauge right here we're looking for. So, you know, one of the things that you notice right off the bat is that the Cirrus all have, well, the newer Cirruses all have glass panels. This happens to be the perspective model of the Cirrus glass panel. There's also an older Avidyne, but everything is on these LCD screens. You no longer have steam gauges other than just for backup down here. One of the things is just nice screen with all the engine parameters on it. You know, we've got it up to 1687. It's pretty hard to hit 1700 right on the bat, but it's really just get close and get a reference point. So we're 1696. So we're going to go ahead and cycle our mags. We'll go over to the left. The left, a little less than 100 drop, so that's good. Back to both. Make sure it comes back up. 1690, yep. Go to the right. 1590, so again, you know, about 100 drop. So we're good there between the two, and we're good overall on the drop. We want no more than 150 overall and no more than 50 difference between the two. If you have either one of those conditions, that kind of indicates that there's maybe something wrong with your magnetos or some other problem. So while we've got it up here, we also load up the alternators here. So if I lean in a little bit here, you'll see we have 45 and 24 amps on the two alternators. If I turn on my other lights and my pitot heat, which is the one that really does it, you'll see that jumps up to 48 and 26. So that basically tells me that the alternator is taking a charge on the airplane. We go across the board here. We've got pretty much everything is in the green. Our oil temperature, we want to make sure it's above 100 degrees before we give it full power, just so we don't overpressurize the oil pump. So it's coming up, it's almost to 150, so we're good there. We got good oil pressure. We've got good battery voltages. We've got good charging, alternator charging. Our fuel is full on this meter. Sure enough, down here, both of those gauges, the backup gauges, are showing full as well. So everything looks good across the board there. We can go ahead and bring it back to 1000 RPM. Or thereabouts. And we'll just continue down here. For takeoff, we want to use 50% flaps on this aircraft. Our radios and navigation are set. We got our mixture rich, our fuel pump, get that turned on. Make sure that our fuel is set to the fullest tank, which they're both full, so that's fine there. Seatbelt fastens, doors fastened. Make sure our controls are free and correct, so you should be able to turn it both directions, one aileron up, one down. You can also use it to double check the flaps are at 50% because the aileron lines up on both sides. Presumably the elevator is doing something back there, so we're good there. Got our caps pin removed, although you can't see it because if I take the cover off, that actually deploys the caps, which we don't want to do. With that, I think we're ready to go. So, you know, quick briefing on this is we're in Yankton Airport. We're going to be departing runway 31. This airplane, we want to rotate at about 66 knots, which is about 10 knots faster than the Cessna. We're going to climb out at 85 knots, which is about the same as the Cessna. Until we get about 500 feet above the ground, then we can bring the flaps up and accelerate to about 105 knots, and then we'll fly our pattern. Because we have a parachute on this airplane, which we don't have on a Cessna, we have to kind of mentally prepare ourselves for the use of that. So, you know, if we take off and the engine were to die, at anything less than what will end up being 1,800 feet or 500 feet AGL. I'll have to try to find some place straight ahead to land and try to survive that. Anything above 500 feet, we're going to pull the parachute immediately, and we'll use the parachute to come down in a somewhat controlled but survivable manner. And if once we get to pattern altitude, then we should be able to do a 180 and get back to the runway. The reason that there is a limitation or a minimum altitude for the parachute is the way this parachute on this airplane deploys is it shoots it out the back, and then it puts the airplane in kind of a nose down attitude as the parachute shrouds actually they come along the side of the airplane, and there's a mount point at the nose, and as it's working, as the parachute is opening up and pulling out of the side of the fuselage, the airplane's in kind of a nose down attitude, and it takes a few seconds for that to get to the front and for the nose to come up and get you in a level position for your crash landing. If you pull the parachute too low, what ends up happening is you're still going forward at a pretty good pace. The nose is pointed down, and you'll crash into the ground very similar to what you would have done if you hadn't pulled the parachute. So anyway, that's why we've got a 500-foot minimum parachute pull. Hopefully I'll never have to use that in real life, but it is there. It is one of the nice features of a Cirrus that most other airplanes don't have. So Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo. We're departing 3-1, remaining in the pattern in Yankton. So you guys also notice I added a map to the video. That should be tracking my progress as I taxi around and fly the patterns. I'm going to do my best to fly a good box pattern, which is where we really want to make the pattern look like a box and not like a weird shaped oval. We'll see how good I can get with that today. I tried it earlier and I had a bunch of ovals going, so you guys can comment, critique what. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll get rolling, try to keep this thing on the runway without a steerable nose wheel. Use a little brake to get it going in the right direction, then we can start to use the rudder. So we'll go to full power. Whoa. There we go. And we got our power coming up, 99%, our airspeed's active. We'll get to 65 knots, 66 knots or so. Goes by quick. We'll go ahead and get us off. Didn't have it trimmed. Didn't have it trimmed very well, but we'll go ahead and get that trimmed up now. Again, we're shooting for about 85 knots on climb out. It'll give us a good vertical speed. And once we get to 800 feet, as long as we have 85 knots, positive climb, we'll go ahead and bring our flaps up. All right, we're at 1,800 feet. We've got 85 knots. Bringing the flaps up. Nose wants to drop, so you got to trim it. You'll find yourself with this airplane doing a lot of trimming because those different phases of flight will really affect the pitch of the airplane. Okay, so this thing does climb pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the power back to about 60% for now. We'll go ahead and start our crosswind turn because we'll be at 2,300 feet before you know it. So again, let's see if we can try to find a nice boxy pattern here. So we want to go perpendicular to the runway, level out. And then we'll go ahead and turn our downwind. Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo, turning a left downwind for runway 31 in Yankton. And so we want to get a good parallel going here. The other thing I can do here is we can kind of cheat and see if I can do two things at once here. Not gain altitude. We can set our heading or our course here to kind of give us a cheat where we should be. Okay, so yeah, we've gained a little bit more altitude than I should have. That's fine. We'll pull the power back and start our descent here. So we'll just do a quick check. Fuel pump's on. Fuel tank is on the fullest. We got full rich. Flaps will be set here in a second, so we're good here. Once we get to the end of the runway, we'll pull it back to 20%, which I'm already at. If we're below 119 knot, we can dump in the first notch of flaps. It really pitches the nose up, so we want to pitch it over and we want to go for 100 knots. Really trim that thing out. Controls aren't fighting me. There we go. That's roughly about it. With that, we'll go ahead and turn base. So Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo, turning left base for 31 in Yankton. Go ahead and dump our second knots of flaps in, and we want to shoot for 90 knots here. Try to do a nice crisp corner. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and turn final. We want to do that about 85 knots, so Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo, turning final for 31 in Yankton. Alright, we're right on the glide slope, that's good, so we want to hold about 85 knots coming down final. Again, you hold the speed with your pitch. So I'm going to go ahead and trim it because our pitch is fighting me. Control the pitch, or control the airspeed with the nose, and if we start to drop out of that glide slope, we add power to get us climbing again. So just bring it down on the glide slope, 85 knots. We start to slow it down now, 80 knots. We want about 75 knots as we go across the threshold. I'm a little fast on this one, so we'll go ahead and bring it back all the way to idle, which is 1,000. We have plenty of runway here. You don't want to force the Cirrus down. Just let it come down when it wants to come down. Otherwise you get a little bounce like that. Got a little porpoise. I guess I didn't get the throttle back. We'll go ahead and get the flaps up to 50, and we can go ahead and give it full throttle. We'll do a touch and go on this one. So 66 will come quick, so back we go. So there's a problem with the V-Flight Air model in that when you pull the power all the way back to idle, this was introduced in the X-Plane 11.10, 11.11 update, is when you bring it back to idle, for some reason it goes to only about 200 RPM, so it almost kills the engine. So that's why I don't just bring it back to idle. I'm actually having to look over here and try to hit 1,000 RPMs. That's my excuse on that last one. So we're climbing out here at 85 knots, holding runway heading. We're above 800 feet. 1,800 feet, so we can go ahead and bring the flaps out, trim it up for about 105 knots. Again, I'm going to go ahead and be a bit ahead of the game here and try to bring our power back to about 50% so we're not climbing and going so fast. Trimming this thing, and we'll go ahead and start our crosswind turn. Again, we'll try to do a reasonably square pattern here, so we'll level out perpendicular. Maybe go a little bit farther out this time because we had a pretty close downwind last time. We'll go ahead and turn our downwind. So Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo. We're turning left downwind for 31 Yankton. Alright, so we'll roll out on runway heading, shooting for 2,300. One of the things, if you guys noticed or not, is the speeds that we fly this aircraft. You know, I did a pattern that was basically 190, 80, 85, whereas in the Cessna you're going to fly it at, roughly 75, roughly 80, 70, 60. You're about 20 knots slower in all phases of the flight in a Cessna. we're midfield. Let's do our landing check. So we've got our fuel pump on, our mixture's on a good tank, or our fuel's on a good tank, mixture's full, flaps are up for now. Below 119 knots, so we can dump our flaps at any time. Once we get to the end of the runway, we'll go ahead and bring our power back to 20% and put 1 knot of flaps in and pitch down for 100 knots. Let's see if we can do a better job at kind of holding the speeds that I want to hold here. There is another little bug with this model of aircraft with the current version of X-Plane, and that's the whole throttle and prop mechanism. It tries to keep the RPMs constant, which isn't working quite right, so it's a little weird when you move the throttle around. Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo, turning left base for 31 in Yankton. Go ahead and get our full flaps in. Now we're shooting for 90 knots. Really got to push forward, trim that nose down. And then we'll go ahead and turn final. Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo, turning final for 31 in Yankton. And then we're looking for 85 knots. See, we turned final right on the glide slope, so that's good. So we'll shoot for 85 knots using the nose to control the airspeed. I need to trim it up a little bit. There we go. Looking good on the glide slope. Looking good on the speed. We're starting to drop a little bit, so I'm going to give me a little bit more power. You notice that weirdness when I gave it power, the prop actually slowed down. RPM slowed down, so I don't know. V-Flight Air is going to have to work that out, I guess. Alright, so we're holding 85, coming down, right on the glide slope. We can start to slow it up now. We got the runway made. Go ahead and pull the power all the way back. Try to hit 1,000 this time. Just round it out. Let it kind of settle. Yeah, a little bounce there. Been playing with my joystick sensitivities too to try to get a better feel, and I think maybe I've gotten a little bit too aggressive on that. No, not gonna hit that first taxiway. Burning the brakes off here. We'll go ahead and back taxi Yankton area traffic. Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo back taxiing 31. The patterns go a little quicker than in a 172, and the speeds are a little higher. Fundamentally, you're still flying the airplane roughly the same way. It's just things happen a little bit faster. That's kind of what the difference is between a Cirrus and a Cessna. So we'll go ahead and get taxied back and shut down, and call it good for a day. And Yankton area traffic, Cirrus 308 Bravo Bravo, we're clear of 31 Yankton. Taxiing back to the ramp. Okay, so as we're taxiing back, we can do a little bit of cleanup. We can bring the flaps up. We can shut our fuel pump off. We don't need that on anymore. And we'll go ahead and lean the mixture a little bit, just to help keep the engine from fouling up and being good and healthy. We'll just say I'm practicing S-turns on the taxiway here. In the real airplane, you can actually do this with rudder. When you're taxiing fast enough, you can keep it on with rudder, and it looks like I've got enough speed today that I'm able to do that here. We'll just try a little bit harder to follow the line. But I'm not using my brakes at this point. I'm using just the rudder. So That's seemingly fairly realistic. We got 20 or so knots of taxi speed. They say in the real airplane they don't really want you to use much more than about 1200 RPMs when you're on the ground. So as part of that is that you'll end up going pretty fast. Alright, let's slow us down for the turn. It'll be coming. Yeah, so we get below 20 knots and that rudder didn't help me do much of a turn. I had to actually use some brakes. Okay, getting back to our hangar here. Go ahead and bring it back to what would normally be an idle RPM. Go ahead and bring the nose around here. Back it in. Comes that kamikaze fuel truck again. We're here. The shutdown procedure in the Cirrus is we want to bring it back to idle. We want to make sure that it'll actually run at idle. Well, in a normal operation, idle is about 800 RPM in this. If I bring it all the way back to idle, you'll see that it's actually dropping to almost not running engine. It'll drop down to a couple hundred RPM. So again, that's got to get fixed. But so arbitrarily, maybe I got to put a piece of tape or something on my throttle until they fix that, just so I don't go too far. So we bring back to idle. That worked. We checked the mag grounding, which is just turn it off, turn it on. We had good grounding there. And then to go ahead and shut the engine off, we'll just bring the mixture back to lean. We'll get the mag shut off. Hold the keys up, the ground guy, we're good. And we can shut everything down. All right. Set the parking brake here because we don't have anybody out there to give us chocks, and we're good. We jump outside again. It survived. All the landing gear's still there. Wings are on. Looks great. All right. Well, in any case, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'm always open to suggestions as well, so if anybody has suggestions on things they would like to see, procedures, flying, let me know, and I would be happy to make a video for that. So again, thanks for watching, and check it out next time. Thanks.